All right, welcome back everyone to another episode of the 5 and 20 podcast where we have at least another 5 questions in 20 something minutes. I'm your host Joshua Miller, and today we have a very special guest who is also a good friend of mine. He is a chef, but more importantly for him, he is a father of four. He's been seen on Food Network, Holiday Cake Wars, where he's won that competition. He's been on some of the Halloween Wars as well. Over the years, he's earned gold, silver, and bronze medals through the American Culinary Federation, and he's been named Chef of the Year 3 times with the ACF, and he's even competed at the International Culinary Olympics in Germany. So, although he's known for all of that and more, including fruit and vegetable carvings, his passion is being a chef, and today's extending that into another passion of his, which is pop secret seasoning, and you're going to get to know about that and more. Again, linking back to that family aspect. We're going to take a deep breath, slow down. I want to talk about family. I want to talk about life. I want to talk about community with Chef Steve Baity. So stick around for this episode and get to know about that and just soak it all in. Chef, let's get to know you a little bit more. So I did mention in the intro a little bit about the fruit and vegetable carving, and that's, I feel like, was one of the first big things that I knew you for when I first met you. How did you first discover that passion?
Yeah, man. I tell people is that it wasn't so much a passion versus an act of desperation. So
Mm,
I was 19 when I got my first leadership role in culinary. And so I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I
yeah.
just remember that we were doing like kind of an opening night and we were doing some other things and we were getting prepped up to that night. And I was working with some more seasoned chefs that they had brought in because it was a contract food service company. And, some of them were doing, salmon that was poached and it was, served with the cucumber scales and everything on it. And another chef was doing ice carving. And I'm over here as the lead chef on this property. I'm making cocktail meatballs. And I just remember like fight or flight, Josh, that I remembered at the hotel I worked at before I came here that there was a chef who used to do pumpkin carvings and he used to do all kinds of really cool garnish along with the ice carvings at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. And I remember on instinct, I went and bought a pumpkin carving kit with the little patterns and I start taping those on watermelons. And I'd stayed after and I'm using that little saw thing and everything. And I made these little centerpieces out of watermelons using the pumpkin carving kit. And the owner was like, no one else is doing this. Who's carving fruit? uh, Anyone can do ice carvings, but this guy, latest and greatest. And I'm like, yeah, ain't nobody like me. Well, I tell you, Josh, Halloween came and went. Fall season is over. And I couldn't get pumpkin carving patterns anymore. I didn't have access to pumpkin carving tools anymore. So I went on the internet and looked up fruit and vegetable carving. And that's when Thai style carving kind of popped up in my browser. And I went and bought some Exacto blades from the
hmm
Hobby Lobby and whatever. And I started practicing like that. And that was just kind of my first introduction into fruit and vegetable carving was out of survival mode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day, dude. Cocktail meatballs, like I didn't.
Dude, I was
Dude.
trash.
That's awesome. Well, so far you've come a long way from that. So,
Hmm.
and even competing. So let's talk about that. So you've been on Food Network, and
Yes.
actually, I had to rewind. I'd never watched the episode, and I actually went and I watched it. The
Oh.
first episode, I was like, "What? This feels like it was so long ago." And like that was 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. It just seems like it was like last year, I feel like. But
Hmm.
so you've competed at Food Network, Culinary Olympics, high pressure situations. What life lessons did you get from those experiences?
Man, so there's so many layers to that onion. I could tell you, Josh, is that my motivation behind carving in the competitive circuit wasn't necessarily I had something to prove to others, but more importantly, is that I felt like a fraud.
Mm,
So one day I came home and I was sitting. My son Seth, he was still much younger, and I'm rocking him in his recliner in his room. Firstborn, mind you, brand new dad. And I'm rocking and I'm reading him bedtime stories. I'm speaking words of affirmation over his life. And I'm telling him that he can do anything he want to do and he's going to be fantastic and this, that, and the third. But then I had a moment of conviction that I had never taken a chance in my life on anything besides just being a chef and working a 9 to 5.
Mm.
And it was at that point in time in my life that I says, I'm gonna start competing. I'm gonna start chasing my dreams. I'm going to put myself out there and make myself uncomfortable. And I entered into my first fruit and vegetable carving competition and I took like sixth place out of like 15 people.
Wow.
Self-taught, mind you,
Wow.
never taken a class in my life, and I took like sixth place. And that was
Mm.
kind of the itch. But what I found out is that I went getting outside of my comfort zone forced me to be more creative. I started wanting to master more techniques that I typically would shy away from because I wanted to do better and be better and I wanted to encounter more, right? And I wanted to grow. And so that's what competition has always done for me. It has been an internal just struggle of wanting to just project that. I live vicariously through my art because it's just me putting myself out there,
Nice.
which has been dope.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely it pushes you to different out of your comfort zone, like you said.
Mhm.
And that leads to one question. Not every chef competes, right? And I kind of stopped. I started off competing, like I was going like crazy at first in culinary school and even a little bit after I got out of it. And then I kind of stopped. But in the workplace, we were doing like competitions against each other. And I look at the like even just in higher education, it is some sick competition with these
Yeah.
chefs, especially in these associations where I'm seeing talent that I didn't know existed. I'm going on campus speaking with chefs that I'm like, they're pulling chefs out of, like literally Michelin stars on their
Mhm.
campus, and I'm just like, what? And then you look at the programs, or you look at the chefs where they're not doing competitions. Is it essential to be a chef to compete? Not everyone has that competitive spirit. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that to unpack is that I think that going into education settings for work in a culinary environment, I think chefs are facing more burnout. They're facing more mental health. They're facing more different family dynamics, and so education and long term care and hospitality settings offer them that balance of life. And so the attraction to talent is really being able to kind of just overlay that, and our customers are more aggressive in their expectations, right? They're more keen into their allergies and they're more keen into farm to table. They're more keen to scratch dining and everything that comes along with it. And so you're getting greater talent. Now, what competition really does is that it elevates the spirit of the leader. And so when you have a leader that is excelling and that they're those that report to them, they go, "That's my guy," and so it all kind of funnels up. And so I think it's essential. Maybe not on maybe always a very high level, but I think it's great to see leaders put themselves out there because there's something about when you look at the person you report to and they win, they have accolades. It's much easier to take their leadership and their suggestions when you see them in that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually appreciate that because hindsight 2020, right? I was seeing what I see now in this road. I'm looking back and I feel like I could have did better as a leader in terms of getting our team involved in some of the local competitions. Just because they weren't in the same food service company as us doesn't mean that we can't still work together, network together with them. So I definitely feel you on that one.
Hmm.
So let's shift here. Let's talk about family, right?
Yeah,
So you're a father of four,
yeah.
and I know that family is very important to you. So, how has that shaped your approach to food in your career?
I think is oh man, I think that it's heavy because you don't understand when you're responsible for a little person, a little nugget, until you become a father, you become a mother. But then, depending on your past trauma of how you were raised, it's going to directly influence the either dedication you have or how you maybe redirect your style of parenting. So, for instance, my dad was a cleaner. And so, on Saturdays, you got to clean. So if you're not careful when you become a parent, now on Saturdays, no matter what's going on, we clean it. We doing it on Saturdays. And it's like, but why? We you could clean all week, but something about Saturdays is now is our cleaning day, right? That's our trauma, right?
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, yeah, that was definitely
So
part of mine.
yes. So what I found out is that being a dad made me a better chef because it slowed the world down enough that I think I was probably more arrogant and more self centered in my life or my career when it was definitely more about me and having an axe to grind and something to prove and kind of making my mark in the world. But then you find out very quickly that it really doesn't matter. That yes, you can work. We talk about the badge of honor, 20 hours a day. You could work 100
Hmm.
hours a week or whatever, whatever. It really does it really doesn't matter. Then you come
Yeah,
home to these little people and daddy, 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 and they don't have the sense of responsibility and that badge of honor or whatever. You find out that interaction time that you have and being present is more important than having a job that you clock into, like, and it's taking you away from those memories. And so being a dad definitely has helped me realize that yeah, those moments and days are cool, and cooking for those celebrities is pretty awesome. But walking in that door and hearing "daddy, daddy, daddy," and those hugs, and when they
yeah,
see you present instead of cooking on the line, it makes it just so much more worth it.
so true.
Hmm.
And sometimes can easily take that for granted. And
Hmm.
so, speaking of, so they obviously know what career you're in. They know that you're dedicated to it. Do they share the love of the kitchen the same way that you do, or is it different?
Oh man. Well, there's a few things that I have found. My kids have a deep appreciation to scratch cooking, quality foods, not overcomplicated foods. They recognize and they also respect that cultural cuisines, and whether it's Hispanic or true Italian or Mediterranean, the list just goes on and on. So I've been very blessed that my kids have had great exposure, but that food has also made them treat people from other ethnicities better, and they can be more inquisitive, and they want to be a part of that because they've experienced that. And so they don't see them as a ew, that's nasty. They see it as, oh, what was that? Talk to me about it. Oh, an enchilada, a taco, or whatever it is. They're interested in those things. And so at a very young age, they were able to make friends just because they
Mm.
were exposed to their culture through food. And the the global like temperament that, and it's just whether it's hot, whether it's cold, it just feel good to know that food is community.
Yeah,
It really is community, and I absolutely love what food does and the barriers that it breaks down. But more importantly, is that we could sit at a table and we strip away anything that society has to offer or say, and we just embrace each other and we break bread. I love that's what food does.
yeah, absolutely. So, $1 million question,
Yeah.
right? When it comes to your kids, I feel like every person in the industry, we always joke in a way and give the same answer. Would you
Hmm.
encourage your kids to go into the same industry?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Dead serious. Absolutely not. Hard line, no.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And I'm gonna tell you, and actually I have a very simple reasoning why, is that I grew up in, and what food service is now today is totally different. And so um, I just remember that people, the reverence for food and the service that was received, people treated it differently. Now they go in there. I paid you $12. I own you right now, and I can say whatever I want to say to you in this space of time for this $12. Yeah, yeah.
Sad but true in some ways, and that's yeah. That unfortunately, that is yeah. There's definitely been a trend of that, and it's hard because we always talk about how the industry is like on a show, right? And you have
Hmm.
in front of the curtain and behind the curtain, which is
Yes.
still true, but it's like we know what goes on back there. Like you don't want to go back
Yeah, yeah.
there.
But also, I will also say this is that the sad reality is that you see people going into this industry and they have their hearts broken because it is getting very difficult to make money in food service.
Yeah, yeah. Got to start at the bottom, work your way up.
Hmm. Hmm.
Awesome. So let's talk about entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah,
So Pop Secret Seasoning, you have that line. Tell us about that.
man.
Why that name? We want to know about that too.
It's adversity is ugly, and darkness is one of those things that we don't always embrace. And the rain and the storms of life is that they often seem just so destructive. But we find that a lot of those elements in life are has such a necessity for the greater good. And Pop Secret Seasoning was one of those things. Now, I it was birthed out of loss of losing my father. We called him Pops. We called him Pops because he was the coolest guy on the that just like walked the planet. We didn't call him Dad, Father. We called him Pops because he was just that cool. That's how we saw our dad. And then, fortunately, one day we were just having a conversation, doing a checkup at the doctor's office, and I said, "Yo, Pops, I'm gonna go grab the car. We could go get some lunch." And I didn't know that would be the last conversation I would have with my dad. I was walking in the way to get the car at a doctor's appointment, and he passed
Mm.
away. And so it just ate at me, and I'm named after my dad. And one day someone just made a suggestion that, hey, your dad was such a great cook, how about you just find a way to honor him, because you got all this anger in your heart, because I just wasn't healed over it. I was just bitter and angry over it. And I decided just to celebrate him through his love of food. And one day I just bottled up his seasonings, and I put it on Facebook, and I says, we're gonna celebrate Pops today, fly high, and I'm gonna sell some of my dad's seasoning. And then it sold out in like 10 minutes, and it correlated to one of the earliest memories I have with my dad. I asked him, I said, "Yo, Pops, what did you what did you season that food with?" He told me, "I can't tell you, it's a secret." And that's one of the earliest memories I had of cooking with my dad, was that response. Hence Pop Secret Seasoning.
Nice, nice. Such a good story. And I feel like that's one thing that brands sometimes miss. Not
Yeah.
all the time. Obviously, there's plenty of good ones out there, but having a story behind it is so impactful. And we talk about telling a story of so many different things, like tell the story of your sustainability, tell the story about the scratch cooking. And it's like, what about telling the story of the ingredients? And sometimes that gets lost in
Mhm.
translation of just competing stories to get in front of consumers. And this is definitely one where there's an impactful story behind it.
Yeah, and then we look to the level of it. I tell people that probably one of the hardest things I had is that when my dad had his funeral, is that he had flowers on his casket, and it was actually the first and only time I remember as a man my dad got flowers. And I just remember that moment of them shutting the casket and putting flowers there, that just etched and burned in my mind that it took him to have death to get flowers.
Mm.
And so that was part of the main reason of when we went to the level of co-packing and scaling, is that we have a huge community effort that we still give back to. My father was an alcoholic. He had an addiction to crack cocaine in the 80s, and he kicked that habit, and he showed me what redemption looked like, and he showed me what it looks like to give back to your community, but more importantly, serve the underserved. And my dad was huge on that, of going back to the hood and going back to public housing, and giving back. And so we do huge fundraisers every single year of giving back, but those resources come through Pop Secret Seasoning that we're able to give back. I'm getting inducted to the Hall of Fame next week, but even after the induction, is that we're going back and we're doing book bags, and we're doing give backs to the community, and we're able to put Pop Secret Seasoning in these book bags and food to give to these families, and we're going to teach them how to serve their family and serve their community. And that's what my dad was all about.
Wow. So I'm learning so much in this episode. And that was actually literally going to be my next question, was the community involvement. So I love this correlation of,
Hmm.
the community involvement. You're constantly getting involved in
Hmm.
organizations. And yeah, that's exactly was what I was going to ask, is where does that come from?
I would be remiss, like you. So you got Pops,
Hmm.
who, obviously as a man, he taught me a lot about being a man. But you have my mother, and anyone who has met my mom, she is full of life. She is one of the kindest people that you will meet. And I don't remember if it was Christmas, but my mom had a shirt made that says, "I gave birth to Stephen C. Baity," and she wears it around our hometown. She never misses anything. But the one thing that my mom has always taught me is that gentleness of being kind and appreciating time, and everything that's around it. And so because of that, I want to just help as many people as I can. That's our whole purpose on this earth. We have careers, which are byproducts, but our whole purpose on this earth is to sow a seed in someone's life. And if they already have a seed there, you water it. God gives the increase. That is a whole
Wow.
purpose. And so when I'm doing this community outreach and these efforts, is that it's not enough for me to talk about the woman who's addicted to heroin and her kids are not dressed properly and they're not bathed properly, but there's organizations that can give her help, but they just need someone to maybe help them highlight the services. But then you got a
Hmm.
Food Network star or an international chef like myself who come along, and now they get media and they get all of this stuff that comes along with these services. Or you're able to go to this organization for foster care, and guess what? They turn 18 years old and they transition out of life, and they don't even know how to cook for themselves except for ramen noodles. And
Hmm.
so now you get a chance to give them life skills. Or you go back to Conquest, who provides housing, and they provide services and mental health and this, that, and the other, and they give them an alternative, but you partner with them to give them a greater scope of their services. And you say, hey, you don't have to feel like you're alone, you can have help. And so I leverage everything that I have as a person, as a chef, as a dad, and whatever that looks like, to help people, because there's
Yeah.
not enough of it. Because it's very easy to talk about, oh, look at him. Oh, good luck. Oh, I'm going to say a prayer for him. But it's another thing to roll up your sleeves and say, yo, let's get to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I feel like I don't hear enough of is organizations that actually will encourage their team to go out into the community on their own, right? It's easy to kumbaya the entire organization. Let's go do this one community event as an organization with their name on it,
Yes.
but get them out there as individuals. And I think there was one where I remember they actually paid like a certain number of hours every year for their team members to just go and get involved with a community. And I think that is going back to sowing those seeds of it
Mhm.
feels good. It doesn't have to come with financial incentive, and maybe that leads to more. And that's something that I'm appreciating more time of in this new chapter of ours, to be able to start to get involved with more community events.
Yeah, absolutely. But I, the other thing that happens is that my circle around me is that we have that same mindset of being a servant, of being a dot connector, and I think that has also played into like how I operate. As a person, is that like my circle, we all encourage each other to serve others. We don't
Yeah.
see it as being selfish. We see it as being selfless. So you don't have to teach somebody to be selfish.
Yeah.
Kids, what the first thing? Mine.
Yeah.
They understand the concept of
Yeah.
mine. Okay, they can't even say full blown sentences, but they can say mine, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that's in us. We already know how to be selfish, but it's
Mm.
another thing to be selfless, which requires discipline and being intentional. And so I'd rather be on the other side of being intentional about being selfless to serve my greater man.
Love that. Love that. Well, Chef, I can't thank you enough for tuning in for this episode. And, obviously, let everyone know, where can they reach out to you? Where can they follow you and Pop Secret Seasoning and get to see all the new stuff that you guys are doing now and in the future? Where can people connect?
Absolutely. So websites is www.stevencbaity.com or popsecret.com, popsecretseasoning.com. Social media, Steven C. Baity. Social media also Pop Secret Seasoning.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Chef and audience. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, we were taking a deep breath this time. We were going to slow things down, not be so technical, and just really talk about things that matter so much in this industry, more outside of all that stuff. So, hopefully, you enjoyed it and stick around for another episode. Until next time, I'm your host, signing off. All right. Thanks, Chef. Did I miss anything first before I hit this stop button?
Nah, man, that was good, man. It's just like I said, everything doesn't have to be